Hello and welcome to the workshop. Now today I'm going to be looking at making a steampunk digital photo frame using this old digital photo frame I got from a charity shop, and which I realised pretty much perfectly fits a 5x4 picture frame, which, surprise surprise, was also from a charity shop. So what I'm going to be looking at doing today is combining the two and then adding a few little steampunk extras to it. So let's get started. So the first thing I'm going to do is to tear this down. I've already taken some of the screws out, basically because I needed to check this was possible before I went too far and started filming. So I've taken 4 screws out the back, which just allows me to take this off. Now all of these plastic bits are just going to find their way probably into a bin. Then I can very carefully lift out the LCD panel, and then there's a lot of screws inside here that need to be undone to allow me to take the circuit board out. So you'll probably be watching this sped up. Okay, so these are going to be getting painted. So the next thing to do is give them a clean so the paint sticks. I'm just going to wipe them over with some meths. And then there'll be a few bits that need to be masked off. But pretty much this is just going to get painted black, because just to get rid of this sort of slightly strange metallic grey that it's painted. Or moulded in, I'm not entirely sure which. Now this frame probably doesn't come across very well on camera, but this isn't proper wood, it's like a sort of a plastic sort of wrap, so that will be getting the same treatment, be painted with the same paint as the plastic back. So we will just give that a wipe over as well, and you can see, I mean, this is the problem with buying stuff from charity shops, is it has an ingrained sort of layer of filth on it, but it's not really too much of a problem. Just give it a wipe and it'll take paint fine. If we just sort of do a little test fit, you can see that that comfortably fits onto the back of that frame. So there won't be any problems there in terms of actually mounting all this once we start putting it together. So next thing is, I kind of want to keep this sort of gold border we've got around here, so I'm just going to mask that off before I spray paint it. Well, that's just masked off. So really the next thing is going to be to try and decide an angle for this, and then I can glue a bracket to the back to hold it. Okay, so in the end I decided not to use this acrylic because I had some scraps of Foamex kicking around, which it's a bit easier to cut and to work with. So basically what I'll be doing is adding these little legs to the back of here. So that'll be supporting the back of this, which I'm just going to glue on now. Okay, so I've just trimmed these down a little bit more. So what we're going to do is just attach those to the back of here, something like this. So what we're going to use to do that is we're first going to mark the positions with a pencil, and then we're going to glue them with some super glue, if I can actually see that pencil mark. And now we're just going to add some rivets to the back, and that's going to be using pearlescent embellishments, which are a favourite little addition of mine. They instantly make something look more steampunk. So they look about like this. They're kind of a half round dome, and we just add a few of these to the back, and once this is all painted, it will look like it's riveted together. Okay, so the next thing to do is to just hit these with some spray paint, where we've just painted the whole thing black and the buttons gold. And now we can start to reassemble this, being careful not to scratch the paint. Okay, so now we will just give this a little bit of a test to check that all the electronics are still working before we go any further. Okay, so the electrics are all tested and working, so I'm just going to take the masking tape off this to reveal the gold inner border that I've kept. And as you can see, this screen actually fits very well into this frame. Now we are going to be refitting the piece of glass that came with the frame on top of the screen, and what I'm intending to do now is to like back paint the glass to hide the metal edging. So I'm going to just take it very slightly onto the actual LCD panel so that it looks right, but you'll see in a moment I'm just going to essentially turn the camera off because I don't think you really want to see me sticking masking tape onto a piece of glass. Okay, so you can see the sort of back painted glass around the edges. I'm just going to peel this tape off and then we can start assembling this. Okay, so we're just going to have a look at marking out to drill the holes to mount this onto the back of this frame. So this will be being mounted right down at the bottom like this. Now what I'm going to do is just poke through. Just marks the positions for the holes, and then we'll be using the original screws. But yeah, so that's the frame done. That's the glass. There's a little bit of a problem in this corner. I'm probably going to have to brush paint over this. It hasn't really worked as well as I hoped, because you don't know if you can see, but this isn't as opaque as I'd like it to be. So that's not really worked very well, and then that corner lifted as I was taking the tape off. Okay, so I said about overpainting these. I've just realised there's a far easier solution, which is to just use this stuff, which is PVC electrical tape. So that will look black from the front, and it will completely block all of the light coming through from the screen. Obviously I'm going to have to trim this down with the knife once I've stuck it all on. And this, if you remember, is the back side of the glass, so the fact that this clearly looks like tape isn't going to be a problem because you're not going to see it from the front. All you'll see from the front, well, I'll just show you once I put this final piece on. Yeah, all you're going to see from the front is that, which is just a black border. So let's just trim this to the edges of the glass. Then we'll give this glass a good clean and get this assembled. Okay, so that's the glass mounted to the screen. And the next thing is just to mount the screen into the frame, which is going to again be done with the same tape. This time just some very small pieces around the inside of this frame. The reason I'm using tape here rather than any sort of glue is because this will, if it's necessary in the future, allow me to take this apart again, which with something electrical is always a possibility. So just using these few little squares of tape will just be enough to hold the screen into place. So that's all together. Now just going to drive these little screws that originally held the front panel on back into this frame, which will hold the back into place. Might have to replace some of these with longer ones, I'm not sure yet, till we see how secure this is. So that seems to be holding okay. Now, I'm not quite sure yet whether to add any more, make this more steampunk. At the moment it's very much just sort of a bit Victorian, but final thing I am going to do is I'm going to take this lead, which is the power lead for it, and just sheathe it inside a piece of old shoelace so that it looks like a piece of cloth covered cable. Okay, so this is now installed amongst other frames and things on my mantelpiece, and it sort of blends in quite well. The back that's sort of reflected in the mirror doesn't look too bad. Now it's painted black with gold buttons, and the image does slowly change if it's going to. Now this is just wired off, there we go, that's just changed image now. This is just wired off a 12 volt bus bar, which is installed there at the back of the clock. Now, I will probably do another video at some point talking about the power system that I've installed into this fireplace that enables me to have illuminated box frames and these candlesticks on the mantelpiece and also power this. So I might do a separate video talking about that, because there is also some sort of glowing effects in the fireplace that are all linked into the same power system, and there's a little bank of switches down at the bottom that controls everything. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video. This was a short build really, but bit of a different one because it's it looks more Victorian, I think, rather than steampunk, but the steampunk element is that it is a digital photo frame rather than just a frame. And yeah, I hope this inspires people. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you soon.